For the longest time, I've kind of valued rationality as one of the most important skills that someone can have. Just the ability of looking at a situation or at an event or at a problem and being so disconnected from your emotions and being able to look at it for what it is and being rational. And I know people who are just very rational people by nature, and I think from the way they've been raised, they've learned how to just be so mindful and so present in how they think and being aware of like just rational thinking and being able to think rationally. And I think, yeah, as I said, the longest time I've just valued that, but I think I've recently been realizing that it doesn't solve everything, and rationality can't be the only solution to everything. You can't face everything with rationality, and the counterpart to rationality is intuition. And intuition is something that, if you're like me, who's always thought of being rational as a good thing, intuition kind of seems risky and something that you can't really trust because intuition often isn't rooted in accurate beliefs or something you can trust or prove. It's really just a gut feeling that you feel is right, but you have no concrete evidence that it is. And it's hard to name a certain situation wherein that is more important, but I think with the bigger things in life and with the way that you think and your goals and the things that go on in your mind, intuition is something that I think people shouldn't forget. And I think when you're too focused on being rational, you kind of forget to trust yourself. I think especially with looking at bigger life decisions, for the most part, I've been trying to be rational. But I realize when I do think rationally, it's you get the gratification that this is logically the best thing for you to do, but it just sometimes it just doesn't feel right. So is it that the problem is you think too much and the point of being rational becomes overthinking and you can't think straight and you can't consider emotions? Because when you are rational, I think I have the habit of considering outside factors more than I consider myself. So that way of thinking is so distant from your intuition, and since rationality and intuition can be two different things, you're kind of leaving yourself behind. And I think intuition is the only way that the heart can speak, whereas rationality is the mind and how complex you can think and how logical you are. But intuition doesn't need logic, it just needs feeling. And intuition on its own really is feeling, but it's feeling that's telling you to do something. It's feeling that's bringing you in a certain direction. And I think I've learned to ignore it because I consider it emotions. And when you're trying to be rational or you're trying to be stoic or you're trying to be um, just a rational, logical thinking person, you kind of forget your own emotions because you consider them illogical or unimportant in certain situations. And maybe in a serious circumstance that is true. If you're trying to get work done and your emotions are just not helping at all, maybe in that case rationality would be good. And I know a lot of cases where rationality is good, but especially with matters concerning yourself, I think intuition is one of the most important things you can consider. And the best approach you can possibly take is one where you combine rationality and intuition, and firstly acknowledge whether being rational and following your mind and following your heart are go in two different directions and are just you have to pick one or the other. And it's in those situations that it gets very difficult where you whether you follow your mind or your heart. There are a lot of conversations about this. This is a topic that we know pretty well. The, it's often a matter of which decision is more risky or which decision is safer. And I think when I've confronted decisions such as those, I've tried to put rationality behind my intuition in a way where I can explain this intuition with rationality, and that's some kind of co-op way that they could work. And I think if you put them in tandem like that, to you it can seem like a good explanation, but you can also it could be a detriment to your intuition. I know I sound very like weird right now what I'm trying to say, but I don't think intuition is something you can really explain, and this is an idea I've said in previous videos how you can't explain emotions. I think intuition is something you should just blindly trust, and it's some blind faith you should have in yourself. If I want to continue this like universal theme in my videos, intuition is really just the universe speaking through your heart in a way that you can't really explain, because you know you feel something and you feel a certain way, and if you feel enough, you don't need to explain it with rationality. You don't need any other proof that you feel otherwise. And when you feel that certain way, and when your intuition is so strong, then you don't even need rationality, because you can feel things. And rationality just comes afterwards. When you feel an intuition for something and you choose to do that, then you can then explain with rationality why you chose that. And it's kind of like the rationality justifies your emotions. So now they're working in harmony. Um, I think having an ear for your own intuition is a skill in itself, and it's something that isn't rationality, because rationality is, to me, trying to consciously explain intuition, trying to look at it, put it under a microscope, and explain why this is so. But rather than that, having an ear and being attuned to your own intuition, I think, is what should be done instead. Um, in creativity, there's this idea that creativity is like a radio station, and you just have to keep your ears tuned to it. You have to keep it's a frequency that you have to tune yourself to, and the more you can tap into that, the more creative you can be. With intuition, I think it is the same thing, where you have to be attuned to your intuition, and you should know it's when it's happening, so to speak, when you are feeling a gut feeling. To be able to identify it without rationalizing it immediately, I think is a good skill, because it's a way to let your heart speak when your mind is what's always the commander of your thoughts and your feelings. And I think I made a video about emotions, how you shouldn't explain them. I think that with that video and this one, I'm kind of expressing the idea that your emotions and your thoughts are two separate things and should be treated differently. And it's often that we treat the mind well with rationality and with conscious thinking, but forget our emotions because they can seem immature or childish, or just volatile and uncontrollable. And that is the nature of emotions. And I think it's the polarity of emotions and thoughts that people should synchronize and harmonize with, when your heart and your mind acknowledge each other equally. And there's a balance between intuition and rationality. I think that's the best way that us humans can operate. And I think that is about what I want to say on this topic. And there are a lot of different things that within this discussion can happen, like the discussion of polarity, how opposites in the world can work. I think that's another video I can approach, like masculine and feminine polarity, dark and light. That's another thing, but I think my recent videos have just been about emotions and that kind of thing, so this is a good video in that series. And yeah, haven't uploaded in a while, but I'll be sure to upload more, so see you around.